Okay, so we are going to start now. Good afternoon to everyone. So my name is Bérénice Camp. I'm working for ABG. I'm very happy to welcome you for this new session of web conference organized by ABG during this time of lockdown, and I hope you're all right. It's great to see that you use this strange period of time to think of your career development. That's really nice that you take this time for you to think of what you want to do after your PhD or postdoc, depending on your situation. For this and for ABG and especially for you, a network is a key element. And that's why we wanted to give you the opportunity to develop your network outside of academia. And that's why we invited someone working outside of academia, so basically Patrick Eparvier, to share his experience. So Patrick Eparvier is a PhD in economics, currently working as a consultant at Technopolis Group, but I'm going to leave himself present. And I wanted to tell you how it will be organized for this session. So there will be two parts in this session. The first part will be dedicated to the presentation by Patrick Eparvier. In this presentation, he's going to share, as I say, to share his experience from PhD to consultant, basically to explain also what led him to where he stands now, which will be very interesting also for you to hear, because it will help you ask yourself the right question about your career design and what you want to do, as I said, after your PhD or postdoc. That will be the first part of this session. And the second part will be dedicated to your own questions. So I would like really you to use this time to ask all the questions you have. You will have the time to do so. And I'm going to explain later on after the presentation how it will be organized so you can ask your questions, as I said. Now, this being said, it's a pleasure actually to welcome you, Patrick Eparvier, for this session. So it's nice to have you on board, and I'm going to leave you the floor so you can start whenever you're ready.
Okay, so we're going to share my screen first. Can you see it?
We can.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I've been asked to make a short presentation of my PhD, what I did during, maybe, and after my PhD, and my current job. To start with, when I was working on my PhD, I didn't know that the job I'm having now existed. So this is, but that's something I will come back. I will come back later. Okay. Okay, so there are four parts. First, I want to say a few words on my PhD, my professional career, my current job, and the lessons I learned regarding my PhD and the way to sell in a way my PhD and what I did in my PhD. And so this is something I will share. I would like to share with you, and we can maybe discuss a little bit on that. I mean, depending on your question. Okay, so my PhD. So I got a PhD in economics from the University of Lyon. My thesis was about growth theories and theories of innovation and technical change, I would say. So it was dealing with policies in favor of R&D and innovation. I started in 2009 and defended my PhD in 2002, but I worked from 1997 to 99 as a lecturer at the University of Lyon. And after that, half-time at the OECD as a statistician. So I had a revenue, and I could also spend time on my PhD to finish it. Okay, so my professional project, so I understood that the audience is made of PhD students, PhD holder, and what I want to say, when I was working on my PhD, it wasn't really clear what I wanted to do actually, what job I wanted to apply and what I wanted to do. I did so, and what was most unclear to me was actually my skills and what I can actually do, what I was able to do, and what kind of job could correspond to my expertise, my skills, and my know-how. I didn't know what I did not want to do. I didn't want to work at the university. I did not apply for a tenure because most important reason was I didn't want to spend my whole life at school. I mean, I was happy to work on my PhD, working at learning and writing a thesis, but I wanted to work, in other environments, not staying at the university. So when I finished my PhD, my first idea was to have an experience with a job dealing with public policies from the point of view of the policymaker. So I spent 7 years of working on research and innovation policies, and I really was interested in seeing the way research and innovation policies were designed and implemented at the level of policymaker. So I wanted to complement my theoretical knowledge with more hands-on. So hands-on, it's what I wanted to say, something more practical. So after I've defined my PhD in 2002, so I defined my PhD in 2002, I left the OECD in 2004 to join the European Commission. I applied to a job at the Joint Research Center in Sevilla, which was called IPTS. The name has changed now. So it is still, Joint Research Center is a DG, and it's considered as an internal think tank of the European Commission on everything dealing with research and innovation policies, but not only, also on environmental policies, because there are different joint research centers. There are maybe something like 10 in Europe in different countries. And the one in Sevilla was working on research and innovation policies. My work in Sevilla was to monitor, analyze innovation policies implemented by the member states. So it really was fully in line with what I did during my PhD. And the point was also to draft or to design recommendations for the member states and for the European Union Commission to strengthen research and innovation in the member states. And my theoretical background was very useful because it provided me with tools to understand what I was working on. When I don't want to enter into the details, but to understand how research, what research policy could do, you have to understand what a national research system, national innovation system is. What are the different actors? What are the linkages between the actors? And this was, I had this knowledge from my PhD. After 2 years in Sevilla, so I applied for a job at Technopolis, which is a consultancy company dealing, among other things, with the evaluation of research and innovation policies. So this was fully in line with my PhD and my previous activities. Point is Technopolis, so I checked yesterday on the website, we are 180 staff and 36 PhD holders. The company was created in 1989 by someone from university. So obviously he has a PhD, and so it's something like more than 20% of the staff has a PhD. Very different topics. I haven't checked, but I think maybe 1/2 is in economics. But we also have I also have colleagues who have a PhD in physics, medicine, biotechnologies, and so on. And my director in Paris also had a PhD, and he understands what the PhD is and what skills I have developed during my PhD. So it is considered as a strong asset by my hierarchy, as well as by our clients. This is something which is also important. In my signature, I put DR, Dr. Patrick Eparvier. It's not for my own, it's because it's important for some clients to say, okay, he's got a PhD, so he knows what he is talking about. And they trust us and our capacity to carry out. I think this is the way they see what a PhD means: thorough, focused, and relevant analysis. So I just want to say a few words on the lessons I learned during my PhD. And when I started, I was very focused on my PhD, and I didn't ask myself too many questions. I really was focused on my PhD because obviously it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy. But after, when I started to arrive at the end, I would say maybe 1 year or 18 months before, I envisaged to find a job. And the point is, so the lessons I learned from this period and afterwards, and also discussion I have had with other people, is to do not count only on you. I mean, so I know that I guess the audience is made of people from different countries, but in France, in particular, and when I was working on my PhD, I mean, when you were a PhD student, if you were not interested in applying at the university, you were lost in a way. So you were on your own, and you have to find a way yourself to find a job. And so this was important for me to discuss and to try to find. I wanted to have support or to discuss, to have views from people outside of the universities. And the point, and I think I could have do more, was to discuss with professionals, director of companies, organizations, and just to say that you want to understand the work they are doing, what expertise they value, what is important for them when they want to recruit people, because sometimes it's difficult for us. I mean, at least it was at my time, to understand what the company, for instance, what Technopolis, I have no idea of what they were doing. If you have, I mean, I had a look at the website, but it wasn't really clear because there are a lot of things, but you don't really understand the way. Okay, so what do they do during their time in the office? So I think this is something important really to discuss and to understand what the jobs are, I mean, refer to and things like that. And I would also advise, and this is something which I did, is to contact PhD holders and to ask for a chat, very strong discussion. I mean, this is something also we are not very good at least in France, again, network of alumni. With in most of the engineering schools and business schools, they have this network of alumni, which we don't have. And I mean, this is something, so we have to create our own informal network. And this is something I would recommend you to do. And again, I guess most of the people will make the effort in replying and discussing with you, as long as you have a precise question, obviously. Okay, something another thing. It was also. It was also, yes. I said before, it was difficult for me to see what I can actually be doing in a company. So the work and background provides us with a strong theoretical framework, at least as far as I'm concerned, to understand problems and carry out a high level of analysis. I have so in Paris, in my office, because the Technopolis is made of 8 offices in Europe, and we are something like 20 people in Paris. 2 of us, I think, have a PhD, and most of our colleagues comes from university, Master of Science level or engineering school, and definitely, I mean, our knowledge is higher than these guys. We don't have to have any fear about that. We also have a young colleague who is finishing his PhD, and so it's something in France, CIFRE, which is half-time at the university, half-time in a company, and we will defend his PhD in the coming month. And definitely, this guy is, I mean, is better. I mean, the way of thinking, the way of working, presenting things is definitely stronger than our other colleagues who only have a Master of Science, I would say. Something which is also important, and in particular, if I think of this guy also, we are not very good, I mean, at selling our skills, because sometimes we don't really know what we can do, and how to present our skills. I think when I was drafting these sentences, I think that the point is when we introduce ourselves as young PhD holder, I would say we often focus on projects rather than competencies, skills, or know-how. And this is something we have to change the way we introduce ourselves. So I said, do not say what you have done or learned, but what you can do. I mean, in a way, it's it's not important to say I work on a project on health funded by European Commission. We were 24 different research organizations, and okay, but what did you do? And what did you learn? And what were the competencies you have developed? And what are what is the know-how that you have also learned from this? I just give you an example on the next slide for you present your competencies and not your publication. So I just took two very, long publication of mine. So the first paragraph is a list, is a two projects, and the underneath, instead of presenting the projects, say what you have done in these projects. So I just say a few words of what we've done for the first paper. And we had interviews with SMEs, we analysis of SME needs, and this talks to policymakers or to people dealing with policy, instead of just saying we have a paper called Favoriser l'innovation, blah, blah. And second thing, the same. What did I do? So we were with a colleague of mine. We work on a paper for a book. Okay, you got a title, but we don't know what we have done. So you explain we benchmark linkages between science and citizens in different national systems and so on. Okay, my current work. So Technopolis, as I said, the core business is evaluation of public policies. And the core of the work is to have interviews with beneficiaries, with policymakers, with stakeholders in general. We also have surveys, workshops, literature review, and more we are working with colleagues who have a background in econometrics. So we also have what we can call economic or econometrical impact. We reconstruct intervention logic of policies. So what policies are aimed at, how, with which objectives, which activities to reach the objectives. We also have an activity which is called policy advice. And it's not evaluating something, but it's more providing guidance or recommendation on what could be done in the future. And sometimes we also have kind of research projects for public agencies. So at the time being, we have two projects funded by the National Agency for Research in France on impact of two policies. What I like in my work, so I just try to not only to speak about my work, but try to be more general, I would say. So as a consultant, because this is the name of my job, what I like is my projects are oriented towards a specific need, which is clearly identified. So from that point of view, so it also depends on the PhD. But as far as I was concerned, my PhD was the thesis was very large, very open. I had to have a look at a large range of literature review, papers, and so on. And in that particular case, now my projects are shorter. So basically, it's from 3 to 9 months, I would say. On average, well, yes, it could be that. On average, is 6 months. So it's definitely shorter. We know exactly what we have to do. So we don't have to first define the research project. The questions we have to answer are defined already. What I like is, and I am lucky in a way, it's my work is fully in line with the work I did in my PhD. So I often refer to what the theory says. Okay, so when you talk about innovation policies, what does that mean? And very often I go back to my thesis and to look at references or things I've written which could help me for specific projects. So it is still useful. So what I like is projects are very different from each other. Topic is not always fully the same. Questions, scope change every time. So it's always something new, but it's not new. I mean, it's new, but in the same range of topics, and is still dealing with research and innovation policies. We work, so Technopolis again is 180 people. We might have 20 nationalities, I think. we might speak 20 languages. So we work, and we also have a network of partners from different countries everywhere in the world, I would say. So we work with different people who have different cultures, different backgrounds. And I think this is exactly what we like during our PhD, this way of working with different people, exchanging. When you go into a conference or something like that, what you like to do is to share your thought and to discuss with people having a different view and different culture and so on. Few words on the way. So again, I'm talking about my company, but I think this is something which is maybe more general. I just try to figure out how our competitors behave, and I think they do the same. So we regularly publish job vacation on LinkedIn and network of alumni association. But we also receive spontaneous applications. And actually, we always have a look at this application, even if we do not necessarily have a job to fill in. But it's always important for us to see what what competencies people have who contact us, because it's also a way to see how they consider ourselves and how they see our companies. When we want to recruit someone, so we set up a first call on Skype most of the time, or if people are in Paris, we can meet them physically to see the person and check motivation. So it's just first interview, okay, what do you want to do, and so on. Why did you contact us? Very general discussion, I would say. A second call or meeting is organized with someone else from the company. So what we like to do is to have different view or different feedback from different persons. And when it's about recruiting someone with a background in economics, most of the time I see the people, even the first round or the second round, because my colleagues also want to have my feedback regarding background in economics of the candidate. A short exercise is given to the candidate. This exercise is not to actually is made to be sure that the people can make the work. So it's either you can do the job or you cannot do. And if you're, because in the past we recruited people and they were very bad at the end. So we implemented this exercise. And again, it's not to say the guy it's just to say, okay, can the guy do the job? Does he understand what she reading? So most of the time we provide the person with a call of proposal, and we ask 2 or 3 questions just and the person has 1 hour to see, can he understand what are the questions, and does she have an opinion on how we can do the work. And the point is not to say this is not the right way to do this. It's just, okay, again, other people understood the question. And when we recruited, so the guy I was talking about, our colleague who will finish his PhD, so we gave him this exercise, and we were positively impressed. He understood everything. He was wrong in many things because he didn't know the work at the time. So he figured out tools or activities which were not relevant. But this was not the point. He really understood what we asked him to read. He was focused, thorough analysis, and again, I think this is exactly what the competencies that we have developed during our PhD. And so this is my life for PhD holders are better than anyone else for that. And I'm really frank, and I really think that. Okay, in conclusion, because I was quite long, be sure of what you can do, what you learn from your PhD thesis. Again, I think it might be a good exercise. Try to take a piece of paper and just put competencies or skills or know-how. What can I do? Value your skills rather than the research project you carried out. This I said already. Contact people in companies, organizations, and ask for a discussion. As I said, just say, okay, I would like to know what your job is about, and not saying I want to apply to your company, but just say, I'm entering into a process of finding a job, and I'm very open on what this job could be. So I would like to discuss with you and things like that. I just asked for 10-15 minute discussion, and I guess people will agree. Exercise yourself for a short presentation of your thesis, kind of a pitch, because I've seen that. So I said 20% of my colleagues do have a PhD, but that means that 80% do not have a PhD. And a too long technical presentation is counterproductive. If you discuss with those people who don't have a PhD, they can be feared if you're too long. Presenting your PhD, the guy could, I mean, your interlocutor could think you cannot be concise, you cannot be precise, and you are so in love with your thesis that you want to spend hours discussing it. But people, most of the time, they do not really care about what you have done. So they are interested in the fact that you have a PhD, but they do not necessarily want to have a long presentation of what you have done, problems you have encountered, and things like that. And last thing is explain that you can also work on a small project with a tight deadline. Okay, you can spend years on a topic, on a project, but you are also good at working on something smaller in terms of scope, in terms of time, duration, and things like that. And I think that's all.
Thank you very much, Patrick, for this presentation. Before maybe giving the floor to participants, I would like to ask you one question, because you mentioned something about networking and meeting professionals. It's something we strongly believe in at ABG, and I would like you maybe to be more precise on networking and explain to us, for instance, to which extent networking for you was helpful for your career development, how it helped you. And second thing is, how can PhDs develop their network, and especially outside of academia, if they consider career development outside of academia?
Okay, so 2 questions. The first one is, so what I did, I contacted different persons from my colleagues. I mean, I discussed with colleagues at the OECD, and I said, I don't really know what I want to do. And the guy say, people say, okay, you can try to contact these persons who is doing that kind of job. So I had quite some meetings with these persons, and it helps me in understanding what I didn't want to do rather than what I wanted to do. But because it was, again, as I said, I could have do more discussing with people. First half of your question. Second half, I think you should, people could, I mean, the audience, they should try to identify PhD holder in the companies, because I mean, I think this is typically the audience that could be helpful for them, and they can try to make their own network based on this. Okay, what are the companies which are working on my topic? So you look at the companies, you identify these companies, and then you try to find the people who have a PhD in these companies, and then you can start the discussion, sending an email.
Great, thank you very much. So let's move now to the part where you can ask your own questions, sorry. So to do so, I would like you to use the Q&A box you can find at the bottom of your screen, and to write your name in it, not the question, but your name, so I can give the floor to you by opening your mic. And there is already one question by Cheren. Can you just give me a few seconds? Cheren.
Hello.
Yeah, you can ask your question.
Yeah, hello. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this presentation. Yes, I would. Yeah, as I written in the question, I would like to know if international PhD holders are also preferred in these types of companies, or is it mainly dominated by francophone, francophones and fluent, or those people who are fluent in French. So what's the language policy in these types of companies?
Okay, so to answer you, so when you say these types of companies, I understand the company like mine, not only my company. So I will start with my company. So Technopolis, as I said, is a European company with 8 offices. All of us do speak English, more or less. And plus, another language. And so this is something which is valued in Technopolis, because we work for the European Commission and we have to speak English, and we also have international projects in other countries. So this is something which is important. If I think of companies like ours, but which are only French-based, I would say, I think they do not necessarily have sufficient international projects to hire people who cannot speak and write in French. But I think this is something which might be tested every time, because more and more we are needed to understand and speak English, because again, definitely in my activity, even of our competitors, smaller competitors, they try to go to project at the European level, and so they need people speaking in English.
Next question will be Modeste Daillé. If you open your mic, you can ask your question.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much for this presentation, Mr. Paravier. I'm really happy because I'm also economist. I'm gonna defend my PhD this month, so it's really good to have someone in the same field. During my PhD, I've basically developed impact evaluation of public policies from an econometric point of view, and I'm really happy that you really insist on the fact that we should be focused on the skills that we have developed rather than being focused on our specific topic, research topic. My question is that in your case, you have had obviously some experience before being hired as a consultant at Technopolis, right? So do you think that right after defending the PhD, we can have the opportunity to directly work as a consultant in companies such as yours or others, which maybe value some of the skills that we have developed? And that's one question. The other question is, saying that we are economists can be seen as really broad, right? To what extent that we can really kind of try to identify specifically how we can sell ourselves, not just as a general economist, but someone who can really bring something depending on the position that has been opened. And more generally, when we send spontaneous applications, how can we be focused?
Okay. Okay, so first of all, and I think, so your first question, I think you are wrong in the way you see yourself. Your PhD is a first professional experience. So therefore, so there are two things I want to say. So in Technopolis, definitely we can hire someone who's just finished his PhD, because again, we consider that the person has an experience. First thing. Second thing, when you will work on your CV, you will not say, I work on my PhD with your title, which is very technical, and you are the only one in the world to really understand what the topic is about. So you, instead of presenting that, you say that you were, you can say researcher or whatever. You find a job, and then you explain what you have done again. You're not just presenting, you're saying, I work on my PhD. Okay, but what did you do? So I understood from what you've said, you work on some econometrics. Say the software that you have used, the techniques that you have used, and things like that, and maybe present one or two projects, but at the very end, just to testify that you have some these kind of projects. And the second thing, if I understand your question, so you said economics is something very general, and again, you have to be very precise on just you can say I got a PhD in economics, but that's not the point. Say what you have done. And again, I presented, my first slide was the title of my PhD, but it never appears in my CV. I just say I work on research and innovation policies. Obviously, my PhD was very broad, was broader, but I just want to say I work on research and innovation policies. So just try to focus on, it could be the topic, could be the tool, could be competence, whatever. Just try to find another way to present your PhD and avoid the academic wording.
Next question will be Krupal Patel. That's you, if you open your mic.
Hello, thank you for the presentation.
Can you speak a little bit louder, because at least I can't hear you.
Okay. Hello?
No, okay.
Hello?
No, we can't hear you so well.
Okay.
Can you maybe increase?
Maybe
No, but we can see his question actually. He has written a question. So if it's the same question,
then.
So what is the right time to decide what path to choose after PhD? So I don't know if he had another question, but I mean, I don't know what right time. It's the sooner the better, I would say.
Next question will be Mathilde. If you open your mic, yeah.
Hi, thank you, Patrick, for your insightful presentation. I wanted to ask if you have some tips about how we can prepare to the short exercises that Technopolis and other consulting agencies are doing or are asking for the candidates.
Can you be more precise? I'm not sure to understand your question.
You mentioned that in the different interviews you were doing with the applicants, at some point you were giving a short exercise.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you have any tips about how we can practice on this type of exercise.
Again, I think the tip is to find the right balance, saying, okay, just show the people that you have a theoretic, I don't know what your subject is about, your discipline, but you have a theoretical background anyway. So just try to mobilize this to say, okay, I've got a theoretical background, but not too much. Because again, you're going to work on, if you give too much on this theoretical background, the people could say, okay, but does she know something else, or she has a very large knowledge, but how can she use this knowledge in that particular case? So my only tip, I mean, the only advice I would say is, again, just try to emphasize, but very shortly, the fact that you have a theoretical background and show how you can use this in this particular exercise.
Next question, Romain.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Thanks a lot for this interesting presentation and background. I have a personal question, not very personal, but I am actually engineer and PhD student in chemistry, and I want to transfer after my PhD in the industry, but I have no really experiences in the industry because many part of my experience are based on academic labs. Have you some advice for me? Because, for instance, they often ask for many years of experience to work in quality, and when you mainly worked on academic, this is difficult.
Are you working in France?
Yes.
Go and see the SAT, or you can maybe send me an email. I will give you very specific advice. So there are many organizations which are aimed at making linkages between science and industry. And so I can see your question and what you have said. And this is typically made for people like you. Again, finding a way to make people, I mean, people from academics and people from industry meet with each other and find a way to cooperate. And also more generally, I would advise you to contact maybe industry association or something like that, and present yourself very briefly in an email saying, okay, I'm working on this topic. Can you tell me which companies might be interested in my knowledge and know-how? And again, say very few words on what you have done, but not send 2 pages of Word documents, just half a page. I mean, the shorter the better. People do not spend time writing things. So you can. I think this is a way. Try to find industry association, and they might help you in identifying companies.
Now that's the turn of, I hope I will pronounce it correctly, Ajinkiya Pua. That's your turn if you open your mic. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
First of all, I would like to thank Patrick for such a nice presentation. And my question would be like, apart from the academics, which areas can a PhD student focus on? Because normally there are pretty less opportunities for PhD students if we consider working in industry or companies. And can you elaborate like how to approach industry or companies to hire us, to hire the PhD students?
Okay, so once again, I think take a piece of paper, write what competencies you have, know-how, skills, and just on internet, you write these maybe 4 keywords, and you will identify companies which are precisely dealing with these skills, and then you try to contact them. I think the best way would be, in theory, to identify industry association, because it's not only one company, but it's a network of companies, and this might be, I mean, a larger gate, I would say. So this would be my advice. Industry association, I think. So it could be very different from one country to another, from one sector to another, but try to find a network of companies. Could be a cluster also, cluster in the different countries, national industry association. Also look at the European Commission is, for each and every topic, they have a scientific committee or committee or whatever. You always can find the name of the persons. There are plenty of organizations, some which are funded by the European Commission itself. And again, it's made of people from academics and people from industry. And these people would be a first entry point, I think, for you.
Daniel?
Yes.
You have a
Can
question?
you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So thank you so much for the conference. I have just a single question. Which other job experience beside the PhD itself is valued for the industry? It's mean that, for example, do a postdoc before to go to the industry, or for example, in my case, I have like a 5-year experience teaching in a university. This kind of postdoc of teaching experience can be valued or not in the industry for apply a job?
I think all experience could be valued, but some more than others. Teaching, depending on the company, depending on the sector, I would say. Postdoc, depending on what you have done. I think what is important is all the industry relationships that you have had during your experience. So it could be, I guess some of you are during PhD, maybe postdoc, you might have worked in a collaborative project with partners from different organizations, and this is something which is important. And if it's industry, it's even better. So all collaboration, because again, it demonstrates that you can work with people from different. You can work with someone else, because also this is something we have heard so many times. You have worked, in my case, 7 years on your PhD, but can you work with someone else? And it obviously. To be frank, this is something which is difficult, because we have spent so much time on our work and working ourselves, finding, doing everything, and it's sometimes difficult to show and to demonstrate that we can work with someone else. So I would say your question is, what is the most valued is cooperation, and if it's within industry, it's even better.
Sarah Simoussi, open your mic and you can shoot your question.
Thank you. Hi. Thank you for the great presentation. I have a question about what do you think with the current situation with COVID? Will this change the recruiting conditions and the process of recruiting? And how would you advise us to deal with these new conditions?
I'm afraid I don't have necessarily something to say about that. I guess the recruiting condition, it might harden the condition for recruitment. We're gonna see how strong the economic crisis will be, but I'm afraid again I'm not in a position to provide any good insight.
On this question, I just want you to know that we have just published on the website of ABG a specific article on how to deal with recruitment process in this strange period of time, and especially because the recruitment process will be done through online. So do not hesitate to have a look at this article. We have just been published this morning, so it can help you actually to address this strange conditions of recruitment. But depending on the context and depending on the position you are targeting, recruitment process still keep being organized. So let's do not hesitate to send applications. Anyway, you never know how it is organized in companies. There is a question. Just a few minutes. Yeah. Moïse Alexandre. Yeah. Moïse Alexandre, that's your turn. So open your mic and ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
My question is, I wanted to know if an industry can be interested in the previous experience you had before your PhD. So maybe you had to work between your master's and the PhD. So can a company be interested in the job you did before the PhD, but still hire you like as a PhD holder?
Again, I think you're making a mistake. You had the first experience and you had the second experience with your PhD. A PhD is a professional experience. So it's not an experience before my PhD. It's just, you know what I mean? So yes, and the answer is definitely yes. Every time you can show that you haven't spent all your time, all your life at school, in the university, it's a good thing. Because again, people sometimes can be reluctant in recruiting someone who has spent his whole life at the university, saying, okay, but will the person be able to work in a different context? So every experience is to be valued. And again, your PhD it's not a PhD, it's a professional experience which ended up in a PhD.
Next question, Anita. Oh, yeah.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. I will have a question that the doctoral school and the college school offer a lot of formation. And what is your point of view about this formation? Do you think it's really valuable for the company?
Okay, I don't have a strong experience in that because I think the doctoral schools in France were implemented just before I finished my PhD, so it didn't exist at that time. But what I've seen for my young colleague who is finishing his PhD, so he had 2 weeks, I think, or something like that, or maybe 3 weeks of sessions, and I think it's I discussed with him, and he said it was a quite good training. So yes, I would be keen on having a positive view of this, and I would also maybe recommend you but I don't have a deep knowledge of what those doctoral schools do, but I would strongly recommend all of you to recommend your professors and all of the staff working in these schools to try to open these training sessions to professionals in industry.
If you don't mind, I would like to add something on the training delivered by doctoral schools. Don't consider them as a waste of time because they are not directly connected with your research project. As Patrick said earlier, of course, you're working on a research project, but your PhD experience is much more than that, and you need to be trained to promote yourself and to talk on this experience as a real professional experience. And the training you can get from these doctoral schools can help you market yourself and your research experience better, and especially if you want to leave academia for a non-academic position, it is really helpful. So don't consider it as a waste of time, and go it because you want it and not because you have to in order to get some credit, something we see at ABG. So we'd like really to insist on that. Do it because you really want it and because you think it will be valuable for your next future, and it always is very interesting for you to get out of your research project for some time and take the time to think of yourself, of what you want to do in the future, what you want and what you can do. Is there any other questions you want to ask to Patrick? No one? Yes. Modeste, it's your turn.
Yeah, I'm coming back. Sorry, but I guess everyone has had the opportunity to ask questions. So this is just very quick questions. You really advise us to talk to professionals, in particular people working in companies doing or dealing with works that are related to our skills, at least to discuss with them and have some advice and some suggestions. Would you mind getting to connecting with you at some point, or just to discuss or sending you CV to have feedback, some stuff like that?
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Sorry, it takes a little bit, few seconds to find you. Next one, I'm sorry, I'm going to pronounce it badly, but Zeishan Ahmed. Zeishan?
Yes,
yes. Yeah, we can.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for your presentation. Well, I am basically a pharmacist. I also did MBA in the management. I also did a PhD in the formulation in the nanomedicine. So I've applied on the many pharmaceutical companies and industries, but I didn't get reply from them. And most of them, they ask that, do you have work permit visa? So this is also the problem with the non-European student, that they do not hire if you don't have a work permit visa. And also I did in formulation, I did the characterization techniques, I did stabilities and different kind of, but they are in a different way as the industries are doing. The industries are also, pharmaceutical industries are also doing in the same. They did characterization and the formulations, they work on the formulations, and they doing the experiments on animals or the clinical trials. Well, the PhD, as we know, that is basically in a particular field, that it's just you have work on the project, but most of them, they are saying that your skills are not according to us, because in the industry they are using a many different kind of skills, we having a different kind of skills. But I want to learn that skills, but unfortunately I didn't got opportunity to do in pharmaceutical company. Even I applied on the management side, but could you please tell me that what can I do for convince them, and how I can do modification in my CV, or what can I do for
Okay, I think what you should try to do is to find 3-4 CVs of people working in this kind of companies, to see how they present themselves, the different projects, experience, activities, and so on, and try maybe to copy that, or copy and improve that. or maybe, yeah, try to, because I guess it might be difficult to find this kind of CVs on internet, but or maybe try to rely on networks of alumni and try to see how, because I guess it's very depending on your sector, what I understand from your question. So I'm afraid I don't have any clue in pharmaceutical. So it's a very general comment I might give.
Maybe for the question on work permit, I would like you to know there is a specific network in France which is called Euraccess. It's a network which is very efficient in helping international researchers with such administrative procedures. So do not hesitate to contact them if you want. I can send you the link to the contact points in France, and something you should know as international researchers in France. There has been a new procedure implemented in France to facilitate actually the deliverance from the obtention of work permits for international researchers. It's something you can promote when you apply for a position in companies. Once again, I can send you additional information on this procedure, but basically there's a specific procedures for companies which are interested in recruiting international researchers for research activities. So once again, contact me if you want additional information on that. Next question, Mohamed.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. I have two small questions. The first one, how to decide if I am really valued for academia or industry? I mean, what are the questions that I should ask myself to see if I'm going to, I'd better to go to the industry instead of academia. The second question is not really related to PhD. What about extra activities? I mean, associations, something like this.
Okay, so your second question, I mean, I guess it's again a general question. So I think all activities that you might have is positive in any way. First question, and again, maybe you talk about association instead of saying you work in this association. Try to just find activities. What have you done in this association? Are you a director? So that means that you can manage people. Or are you working on, I don't know, making survey or anything that you can read? Regarding your first question, if I understood, because the sound was not very good, I understood, might be wrong. You want me to tell you which question you have to ask yourself, whether you want to work at the university or in industry. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I cut the microphone, but basically that was the sense of the question.
Okay, so this is what you understood as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, it's very difficult. I mean, it's a choice you will not, and it's not necessarily a choice that you will make for your whole life. I mean, you can start working at the university and then go to industry, or could be the other way around. So I don't know. I mean, if you, it's the choice of the rich, we say in French, no?
Maybe to add some information on this question, should you go academia or industry, that's your personal choice. So basically no one can decide beyond yourself. And as Patrick said earlier, by networking and by meeting professionals from different environments, you will have a more precise sense of what you would like to do in the future. So do not hesitate also to take the time to think of everything you have done until now and analyze this experience in terms of skills, of course, but also in terms of what did you like and dislike in these activities, and also what you would like to have or to do in the future. And this question will be very helpful to design your career plan, either in academia or in industry. Just very important information on academic career development in academia, of course. In France, just for you to know, in France, we have every year around 14,000 new PhD holders, all fields. And we have every year about 2,000 permanent academic position as a creation. So you see, basically, you will have more opportunities outside of academia. It's something you should have in mind when you consider your career choices. And as Patrick said, it's not because you decided to go a specific ways that you can come back in the other environment. It's something we can see. It's not so easy, but it's also still possible. Ismaila.
That's not a question, actually. She hasn't a question.
Sorry?
She has no question.
Okay, sorry.
And Jean-Régis, so I can see your question.
I'm just giving him the mic. It will be just a few seconds. Mm-hmm. Jean-Régis, it's your turn.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
All right, so thank you, Mr. Epevi, for your presentation. It was really interesting. On my side, I'm also doing a PhD in economics at the University of Lyon, and it's on academic entrepreneurship. And to this regard, I have two questions. The first one is, do you have some names to give, to share, similar to your organization and working also on consultancy regarding public policies and innovation or technology transfer? And the second question would be, what are the most common mistakes you observe from job applicants, whether they are PhD holders or no, whatever? Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just looking at on internet at the same time. So for the first question, there is a Association des conseils en innovation, ACI. And you can, we were a member of this association for some years ago. Association des conseils en innovation, and you will find a whole list of companies working on, I mean, the work we are doing, evaluation, policy advice, and on not only on innovation and research policy, but on cohesion policy, employment, social policy, and so on. So I will advise you to look at this association. And for your second question, common mistakes for job applicants. Okay, so I will repeat myself, but most of the time, people consider they do not necessarily need to enter into the details of what they can do. They say about what they have done. Okay, I work in this company, blah blah blah. But okay, but what did you do? So I think this might be the most common mistake, or not necessarily mistake, but try to again listen to the question and try to, if you're very clever, try to say, okay, how can I say that I got a theoretical background to answer this question, but something which is not too big? Saying, okay, so you say this question makes me think of blah blah blah. The theory says that, but then you stop and then you answer the question. So you just show that you are using your theoretical background to answer the question. But I'm not sure I don't know the extent to which I answer the question. But again, it's not necessarily the mistake, but try to be very precise on the activities you have carried out. Instead of just mentioning the project or the name of the company. I work at this company. Okay. So what? What did you do?
Just maybe to add on that, especially for the skills part, ABG together with partners like CPU and MEDEV developed a few years ago a skills portfolio online, which is called mydocpro.org. It's something you can really use to help market your research experience in terms of skills. It is really helpful to put a name on what you can do, because there is one step which is to identify what you can do, and the second step then will be to associate for each of your activity or responsibilities the skills you developed or you use to be successful in this activity. Is there a last question maybe? Okay, so in this case, we are going to conclude this session. I would like to thank you very much, Patrick Eparvier, for your time. It was really nice to hear your experience. I hope it has been helpful for you participants. And as we say, do not hesitate to connect with us if you're interested in. And let's keep in touch and, of course, take care of yourself in this very strange period of time. Have a nice afternoon and see you for the next session by ABG. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.